Right. Well, that's applicable. That's the one that's applicable for my point.
All right. Good. All right. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. As always, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have an agenda in front of us. I think there's a couple that we should just one we need to correct, and that's, it's not VHDA revitalization grant, it's actually Virginia Housing Revitalization Resolution, and that's just a correction. And then under new business 5A is RRRC board appointment for Jonathan. You need to take formal action to put him on the RRC board. Anybody else have anything we need to add to this agenda?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, are you tracking Mr. Blunt's contact information?
Yeah, I'm good on here too, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as corrected and amended.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, public comment. Public comment. Glad y'all came. We'll do that again. Consent agenda. We have minutes from 9/28/21. Anybody else have anything we need to add to this?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We do have some special appearances. We have the gentleman from Virginia Housing Revitalization Resolution. Understand you all have the presentation. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon. I'll be very brief. My name is Wally Robinson. I am with Virginia Housing. With me is Frank Rivera. You are correct, we were VHDA. We rebranded ourselves this year for marketing, but recognized by the gentleman still as VHDA. We are the state's finance agency. You're familiar with this. Over 180,000 new homeownership programs, as well as our multifamily programs. Tonight, I wanted to kind of mention our mixed use income program. So, met with some representatives here in the county and the town interested in our program. So, as part of our mixed use income program in financing, we have some criteria that's needed in order to do that, and that is the property either located in a HUD qualified census tract, or QCT, or the city, town, county can recognize that area as an area of revitalization and create a resolution designated as a revitalization area. By doing that, it opens up some finance opportunities that Virginia Housing has created. So, I guess one thing, so Virginia Housing, we are a quasi-state agency. We use no state funding. The money that we use for our programs is generated from bonds, and we take that money, the money that we make off of our fees, we reinvest in our community as first-time homeowner down payment assistance, as well as being able to subsidize some of our more mission-driven projects in revitalization of smaller communities. So in the past, similar to your main street, taking some residential property, some residential units down on the second floor, and bringing back some small businesses to Main Street. It's a program that's focused for workforce housing. So this are the people you rely on a daily basis. This are the clerks of the court, your school teachers. It's income qualified for a percentage of the residents. So our program has a requirement that 20% of the units will be restricted to individuals whose income does not exceed 80% of the area's median income. I think your area is probably around 60, I think it was 61,000, 62,000 is the area median income for Madison. The balance of that 80% units would be at unrestricted market rate. So it's a very flexible program. Again, I want to focus that it's really geared for workforce housing. So again, with that program, that's really our mixed use program. I don't know if you have any questions on the resolution and designate that. So it can be property specific. If we, the one property we're looking at right now in question, it can be a resolution designated that one single property, or you may want to look down Main Street and see if it would benefit bringing other properties in that would qualify for the income, the program as well.
My only kind of question, I guess, is probably Sean Gregg. The town has its own separate government. I would assume that they would have to pass the resolution.
The town can pass it, yes. That has since been updated. The town officials are able to pass that resolution.
All right. Other questions, comments, thoughts?
But as a county, Mr. Robinson, if the county passed it as well, then we could designate. I mean, we've got villages, what we call villages within the county.
You could
Brightwood, Crigglesville, etc., Atland, and this could be used for that purpose as well.
So this could be a tool for that, yes, it is as well. So yeah, this program that we're discussing is for commercial space as well as residential. I do have another program that's residential only. It would sound more to that.
And how does that usually work? Does a property owner typically come to us or the town, in the town's case, and say, I've got a piece of property that would like for you all to designate as a revitalization area, which would qualify me for programs under Virginia housing? Or would the town or the county say, we hereby designate such and such property as a revitalization area, and then if somebody, all right, so some property that the county owns, let's talk about the Crigglesville School. So if we as a board would designate that as a revitalization area, then somebody came in with a proposal or a plan to do something with that property, we could say, go talk to Wally Robinson at Virginia Housing, and there's a program there that would assist in with your vision.
Yeah, I think that's one of the means of doing so. Another means is with our impact planning grants that the town could access, that you could create a town hall meeting, bringing in some of the local property owners together and creating a plan of downtown revitalization. With that, we've had some grant programs that would be able to meet with some architects and design. So those are grant programs. Frank could probably explain more to the limits of those grants, but I believe they're up to 100,000. Some of those planning grants would help with market studies, doing some reconnaissance on some of the existing buildings, getting some structural engineers out, getting some architects out, and some design and everything, and seeing if it's something, this school that you're referencing, getting some preliminary designs out there and helping you put an RFP together, getting some individual developers interested in maybe bidding on the project.
So is grant money available to get that started?
That sounds good.
So we do have that, and a third piece we have is some pre-developmental loan money. So that's really going to be more focused to your developers, your property owners. If you have some for-profit property owners that are interested in developing a piece of property here downtown, we have a 3-year no-interest loan. That's up to 100,000 as well. Again, that's going to pay for their due diligence and environmental studies and architectural designs, meeting with attorneys and things like that. And that can be backdated 2 years, I believe, from meeting with working. So again, we're trying to make some opportunities and revitalize some of our older main streets.
But still, to qualify, you've got to have 20% of the units at 80% of the
80%
average
area
income, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I mean, that's your school teachers, that's your
Oh,
sheriff's deputies, anybody.
we have a fine school. I think we should designate it immediately.
Yeah.
All right. What projects have you done close to us, I guess?
Again, the ones that you just completed, the one I just completed that you have a copy of would be Big Stone Gap Pharmacy. So that was a unique, that was an older pharmacy in the community that the Housing Authority was able to acquire. Working with the town, they were able to secure, they've got a large restaurant that was able to survive COVID. They created 3 apartments on the second floor, and the basement has been renovated to a banquet space and some flex office space that town individuals are able to rent daily or on a monthly basis.
Mr. Chairman, to your question, the Light Well in Orange was a program that was about 15 years ago, but it wasn't in this program, it was in a comparable program.
So does Virginia Housing still own that property?
So we don't own it, we do keep, they're in our portfolio. I believe that is still in our loan portfolio, so we do not sell our loans, we originate the loans, they stay in our portfolio. We have asset managers, compliance officers that will work with the property owners.
So, Tracy, both of you gentlemen have met Tracy before, so, and for the rest of the board, see, these gentlemen came to Skyline a few weeks ago when Tracy came up. And so we had a round table for a couple of hours. So I think a lot of the details of the programs that are available, which there are a number of them, they are numerous. I think Tracy is either familiar or has got the details on.
There's, you know, limitless, there's a lot of different resources available between Virginia Housing and our state agency, DHCD. I think that you said you're Main Street participant, but between the two of us and grant potentials and opportunities in revitalizing it.
But let me ask one more question then. So the revitalization situation, once a body like the town council or board of supervisors passes that resolution, then the county or the board is out of it.
That is correct. At that point, that property and any property that you created in that map, that those parcels are included in that for revitalization. It doesn't have any, it should not have any impact on your tax basis. It's not going to devalue the property.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It should actually go the other way.
it should.
Yeah.
It should, because it's going to open up the opportunity. You know, the program, again, the big thing about the program is that it's offering non-recourse lending, 90% loan to value with interest rates that are below 2% in some instances.
Russell?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So I'm looking at the resolution, put this in your packet generally for information purposes, but anytime you meet, you can take action. My question is, in your resolution as it's drafted, is it normal for the board would pass it once they designate an area? Because that needs to be a part of the exhibit.
Yes, I think we would want to attach that to an exhibit once you determine the footprint of your revitalization area.
Thank you, sir.
Unless
So
you
with,
want to be specific to one parcel.
okay, thank you. So with that being said, just your preference, if you know tonight, or if you would like to come back with a list of those areas so we can target that, Mr. Gregg and I can wordsmith the resolution to fit that and then present it to you all as an action item, whichever direction, Mr. Chairman, you wish to go.
I mean, to Mr. Weekly's point, I think one path moving forward on this would be to coordinate with Ms. Gardner, determine what our footprint looks like, because it's probably not going to be a contiguous footprint. And if we do it that way, I would suggest making sure that we have plenty of advertisement and possibly even holding a public hearing on this, just to make sure that we get some community buy-in, because this could be a very powerful opportunity for the county, and for the town and the villages that have been described.
But with this resolution, we can identify multiple different areas.
That's correct.
Just attach them as
So
exhibits and move
you
on.
could do two different resolutions. You can do one property specific right now, if that would move
All right.
Skyline along, and then you can come back. You may want to have a town hall meeting, bringing some property owners in to see how broad you want to make this.
Now, Skylines, that is located
It's in town.
in town, okay.
Yeah, so,
How's that going?
we're getting there.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Kevin? It's a slow process, but I attended the town council meeting Thursday, and I asked if one of them would come tonight. I don't seem like they've made it.
No.
But we will speak with them, and when I put my Skyline hat on, and the next board meeting, we'll have to talk about that.
Are they still working on the Airbnbs?
No, we're doing,
Not Skyline, I'm talking the town.
oh, the town.
They got past that. All right, good. Now we can move into something new. This looks like a great opportunity. I mean, there are a lot of areas that I wouldn't describe them as blighted, but that have challenges drawing investors to them. And going down this path may be a super viable option.
Unfortunately, the language in general simply used maybe is a little harsh and blighted, but I think we all understand that.
Absolutely. Let's see if we can identify some and go down the path. I think having the public hearing is a pretty good one, and we know that there's a handful of investors that are local. Then this may work out well for them.
And we'd be happy to come back to that.
Great.
If you speak with some of the investors who go into a little more detail with some of our grant programs.
Tracy?
Yes.
Good. You have anything to add about this?
I don't think I asked, because I wasn't thinking about the county property that day. Can this be used with a brownfields grant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Brownfields was in the, I've used it in several projects. I know that the Big Stone Gap property had brownfield money. They had probably 7 different sources: DHCD, brownfield, coalfield money, Appalachian coal money. So those, brownfield money would be fine. I mean, I know there's some restrictions of what that can be used for.
Thank you.
One more question, Mr. Robinson. So what is Virginia Housing's annual budget? Just to let everybody know what size organization you're talking about.
We've got over $2 billion in single family loans right now, and I think last year we generated over $1 billion in multifamily loan origination.
How many people work with your group?
Yeah, we're growing leaps and bounds. We now probably have, I'm gonna say, probably 450 plus. I know that we hired 70 contractors we're working with the HCD. We're doing the rental relief program. So we've got subcontractors working, and I think it's at least 70 hired for that.
Logan?
You might remember, I think it was a year ago, we adopted a revitalization area on Courthouse Mountain Road for that project that we just sort of went away. So if anyone comes in with an idea and wants to do I guess it's the low LHITC, is that?
That's a different program. So that is a low-income housing tax credit program.
Okay.
That's the federal program that we administer for the state.
Okay.
So that's typically serving income limits 60% and below. So that's a very competitive program. I'm trying to think where the nearest. I know there's several in Charlottesville and different surrounding. Orange has got some low-income housing tax credit program. But that's totally different program. That's using federal money and working with some investors.
All right. Other questions, comments, thoughts?
We might just have to get them back up here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please get your community together if they want to talk about some investment.
I mean, essentially, is trying to get some type of engagement going with this group. Is it something that we could go ahead and start to identify potentially Friglersville School as an area, or Friglersville and some other areas, so that we can try to get something going on with this?
I agree. If you think of area in the county, you know, that whole Banco area going back, I mean, it was thriving, I like to think yesteryears. That's one that comes right to mind. I'm just wondering, yes, I'm just wondering if there are others that we, you know, kind of need to shake the tree on to make sure we include it.
The only reason that I even bring up that we should probably kind of get this thing going is it would be nice to encompass all areas with one proposal, but trying to get something simple that we can manage where, frankly, it's just us. It's not including the town at all. I think that it would be great for the town. I'd like to work with this group and the town council and try to get something going on that as well. But if we could come up with some type of proposal to at least engage and pass a portion of this resolution, maybe we can not have another county administrator that passes along Craiglersville to the next guy. John is going to be with us for 20 years, so I mean, we've got a lot of time on that Craiglersville deal. 25, there you go. Good. I think we should start to identify some and bring it back for an action item.
So if the idea is to move it forward, we can definitely zoom in on the Banco Craiglersville area. Mr. Greg and I can work together to wordsmith. I don't think it's a bad idea to pass it off to Wally and his team for one final look and bring it back to the board action, say in November.
Absolutely. I think that the other portion of this, I mean, if at all possible, let's say you all identify a couple areas, use the Banco area and Craiglersville area, because that would encompass the school, of course. Bring it back to us in October, but I think this is one that, since you are talking about private owners, that we would maybe hold a public hearing in November so that we could have people, if they feel inclined, to come in and talk to us before we pass a resolution.
Mr. Chairman, forgive me for my simplistic, so what I just heard was bring this back with the Craiglersville model, second meeting in October, and then look to have a public hearing to see if there's any other properties or areas to move forward with separate resolution.
Yeah, that's better than what I said. Yeah, that'll work. That's a good plan.
Okay. I've learned to summarize just to make sure I have direction, so thank you.
Well, let's do that.
And with that, again, you know, we've got our planning grant. You keep referencing the school, and that we've talked about that, so maybe the planning grant would be something that you could use.
Oh, yeah.
Moving that forward.
Absolutely.
So I think we have the gist of it. While you and I can have some conversation, and Sean and Tracy and I can put our heads together as well. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.
We're going to depart.
Yes, sir.
If you're hungry, make sure you eat in Madison when you weigh up.
Well, they've already cruised.
Not a requirement to apply for the grant, just a suggestion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was good. All right. Hurt and profit site study presentation. Patrick, please come on up.
Well, good evening, members of the Madison County Board of Supervisors. It's good to be here tonight. My name is Patrick Profit, and I have here Zach Johnson as well with Hurt and Profit Engineers out of Lynchburg, Virginia. And I just want to say we really appreciate the opportunity to come up here and actually present this study. We do a lot of these, but a lot of times we don't get an opportunity to present them in person. So again, we really appreciate you making time in your agenda to allow us to come up and meet with you and talk a little bit about it. When I had the original discussions with the previous county administrator, we talked about a number of things, like what are in these studies. Again, we do a number of them. So we've identified 6 or 7 items that we'll talk a little bit more about in the presentation that we always include in these site selections. So it's part feasibility, discovery, due diligence process that we look at as we, again, look at site selections and give that information. Now, he was also very clear that when we do this, we were not to draw any opinions, conclusions, or make any recommendations, but just report the facts to you, the stakeholders, so that you can make an informed and objective decision based on that information. So I think we've done that for you here, and Zach will actually, he will do the presentation for you because he did the majority of the work, the research, and put this together. But I just want to point out that he's going to highlight the pertinent information from that report, but there's a lot more detailed information actually in the study that we did. So hopefully you've had a chance to read that, or will have a chance to read that as we go forward. Because again, he's going to do the highlights in this presentation, but there's a lot more information in the actual site study report. And we also want to keep this kind of informal and keep you engaged. So as we're going through the presentation, if you have any questions, comments, want to discuss anything more, please just tell us and we'll enter into those. Again, whatever you want to discuss, we can do that here. So before I turn it over to, does anybody need a hard copy of either the presentation or the study?
I think if you have them, we can issue
do,
this to the board,
absolutely.
please.
Ready? Is it okay if I come?
Okay. So Jonathan, what we have in our packet is the presentation, the study of which is different.
Most of it, they've grabbed a lot of the, yeah, you should have both
I've
of
got
them.
both of them, that's A and B.
Right.
B being the PowerPoint, A being the presentation.
Yeah, the presentation condenses, but it really hits on a lot of the meat and potatoes of the study. So part of the proposal or the work, scope of work was to give a final presentation as well, so.
Got it.
Mr. Weekly, did you need?
Please, absolutely. Thank you very much. And we'll get one from Mr. Gregg. Thank you. I'm gonna get there.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Patrick. And I'd just like to reiterate, if you have any questions about any of the material I'm going over today, please feel free to raise your hand or stop me in the middle of a sentence. Please do not be shy. So, next slide, please. So, we were hired to investigate 2 different sites for a new potential building for the Madison County Rescue Squad. The first site, known as the Gate Road site, is located at the intersection of Route 29 and Gate Road. The second site, which will be known as the Fairgrounds Roadside, is located along Fairgrounds Road, and this site is about a 31-acre piece in the northwest corner of a larger piece of property that is also home to Hoover Ridge Park. Next slide, please. So these are some of the criteria that we evaluated the site on: the existing conditions of the site, the land cost and availability if the county would have to spend any dollars to acquire the property, the on-site infrastructure required such as access drives or parking lots that would be necessary, the environmental impacts associated with developing each site, the utility infrastructure that would be required such as water and sanitary service, the proximity to hotspots of emergency calls within the county, say nursing homes or other points of interest such as schools, and also the potential for future expansion upon the site if the county would one day like to relocate other Madison County public safety operations offices to form sort of a hub of public safety operations offices within the county. And then of course the site development costs. So now we'll take a closer look at each of these sites individually. Next slide. So this is the Gate Road site. It is about a 15.5-acre piece of property that is currently owned by the Madison County Rescue Squad, and this site is currently zoned B1 for general business. Since the property is owned by the Rescue Squad, it's understood that Madison County would not incur any costs associated with acquiring the property, and if the site was chosen, that it was ready to be developed. This property does have a 60-foot wide right-of-way section running through the western portion of the site, so this would limit any development that happens on the site to the eastern section of the parcel. This site is also currently undeveloped, and it has a small wooded area in the southwest corner. There's also an existing stream channel in the southwestern section that could limit development. Next slide, please. So this is the Fairgrounds Roadside. As I mentioned, it's a smaller 31-acre section of a larger piece of property that is currently owned by the fine folks of the Madison County Board of Supervisors. So due to this property ownership, neither land cost nor availability is a concern for this site. The site is bounded by a stream running along the southern and eastern edges of this area, so that could have some limits on development. The area is currently being used for agricultural purposes and is zoned A1 for agricultural, so it would have to be rezoned if we were going to develop the site. Next slide, please. So we began to look at potential layouts for each of these sites, and for the Gate Road site, a plan set had been previously completed for the new rescue squad building by Hinchy and Baines PLC. It is our understanding that if the Gate Road site is chosen for development, then this plan set will be followed for the building. For the Fairgrounds Road site, we decided to use a similar building layout and parking lot layout and developed 3 different layouts for the site. Layout 1, we chose to maximize the visibility of the front of the building from the roadway. However, this did lead to larger earthwork numbers and inflated the cost. Layout 2 was created to find a balance between earthwork and cost by maintaining visibility but trying to cut down on the earthwork numbers. Layout 3 was created to minimize the earthwork numbers, therefore minimizing cost. And now we'll take a closer look at each of these sites.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
What is the importance of visibility?
Using the goal.
Okay.
Wait.
Steady?
Yeah.
So that you know
It
it's
is.
there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a staple within the county, such as a new school or a rescue squad building, something that people take pride in, a point of pride within the county, sometimes counties like to have that visible to people from the road.
Thank you.
So this is the proposed layout for the Gate Road site. The building does have good visibility from Route 29, and the entrance to the site is actually on Gate Road. Everything does fit quite nicely onto this site, however, it does leave little room for future development. So here's layout 1 for the Fairgrounds Road site. As you can see, the face of the building runs parallel to Fairgrounds Road to allow for maximum visibility for passing motorists. And here's layout 2. As you can see, the building is located at a slight angle, and this was to maintain the front of the building visibility and try to cut down on some of the earthwork quantities. And here's layout number 3 for the Fairgrounds Road site. And in this site, the building was located to minimize the earthwork values and try to minimize cost of development. So, one important aspect of any new development is your stormwater management plan and ensuring that your site meets the VSMP regulations for water quantity and water quality. One typical treatment process to meet the water quantity regulation are extended detention ponds, and you'll find these ponds on many new developments, and these ponds were proposed on the plan set for the Gate Road property. To meet the water quality aspect, the Gate Road site utilized conserved open space, which places area into a conservation easement as land that must remain as open space as defined by DEQ. It should be noted that land in this easement does not allow for future development, so this does further limit the potential for expansion upon that site. The Fairgrounds Road site would most likely use a similar approach, using an extended detention pond to meet the water quantity aspect, and to meet the water quality aspect, a conserved open space easement could be used, or an alternative approach of purchasing stormwater nutrient credits could be used. So, an environmental analysis was also performed for each of the sites to determine if there are any potential environmental impacts associated with development, such as stream and wetland impacts, protected species impacts, cultural resources impacts, such as if there were archaeological sites found on the property, and also floodplain impacts. After reviewing the data on the available federal databases, it was determined that the Gate Road site had no unique environmental resources present. However, there could be potential stream impacts if the channel in the southwest portion of the site was disturbed during construction. Similarly, the Fairgrounds Road site had no unique environmental resources, but there could be potential stream and wetland impacts if the channel running along the southern and eastern borders was disturbed. So moving on to utility infrastructure. We investigated what it would take to provide utility service to each of the sites. In terms of water and sanitary utility structure, we looked at either public service through the Rapidan Service Authority or private utility service through the use of a well and drain field. We also looked at the electrical infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure, and natural gas infrastructure. So this map shows the closest existing water infrastructure to both sites and the proposed water infrastructure for each site. The closest water main to the Gate Road site, unfortunately, is 6,000 feet away, so there is no public water service in this area. Therefore, it was determined that the Gate Road site would best be served by an on-site well. However, there is an existing water main in the vicinity of the Fairgrounds Roadside. This main would have to be extended approximately 800 feet north along Fairgrounds Road to serve the site. Extending this main would be costly, so it should be noted that if more buildings were located to the site later, they could also utilize this utility. However, if you do just want to serve the proposed rescue squad building, you could install a well, and that would be a much lower cost. Sanitary sewer service is a similar situation. There's no public sanitary sewer service in the vicinity of the Gate Road site, as service does not extend west down Route 29 from the existing treatment plant. Therefore, the Gate Road site would have to be served by a private drain field. For the Fairgrounds Road site, there is an existing sanitary force main running along Fairgrounds Road. This force main could be tied into to provide sanitary service for the site. However, a new run of force main pipe and a new pump station would be required on the site. Once again, this is a more expensive option, so it should be noted that the site could be serviced by a private drain field if preferred. Electrical infrastructure was readily available for both sites. The Rappahannock Electric Cooperative has existing power lines running by both sites, and these lines could easily be tied into to serve the new building. For telecommunications infrastructure, Madison County currently does have plans to install fiber optic cable in the vicinity of the the Fairgrounds Road site. These three options are shown on the map. And at the time this report was put together, a final decision had not been made on which option they were likely to go with. However, all three options do pass the site and would be able to serve the new building. It is my understanding that the county does not have any plans to install fiber in the vicinity of the Gate Road site, so this means that that site would have to be served by a private ISP provider.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Okay, so the two notes, let's go back one now. So the two notes that are up there, what did I say? What is the difference between note 1 and note 2? High speed, number 2 says high speed cable internet and telephone service is available for both the Gate Road and Fairground Road. So what's the issue with installing fiber if you can get high speed cable internet and telephone service at both places?
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, the county is planning on installing by Fairgrounds, but not by Gate Road, and you're asking what the disadvantage is of that site? That would just have to be through a private ISP provider instead of utilizing lines that the county owns.
And what is the advantage of the county owning the fiber?
My understanding was just that it would be more cost effective.
Is that right?
Livingston.
Is that right, Bruce?
Well, I'm thinking that I don't know anything about putting fiber unless it's Brian Gordon. Let's talk about putting fiber.
Let's talk theory here.
Well, theory, we could get it tunneling under 29 and over to the Fairgrounds location.
No, which is better? To use a private ISP provider or use the future existing fiber that's in the ground that we own?
Using the existing fiber.
No, what's the
Mayor?
difference?
Well, the difference is with fiber, you're gonna be running about, you can run gig speeds out there, back through it's faster.
Okay.
To where on the, if we were to get Comcast out to, which I don't even know if they can get it out there, to the Gatehouse Road site, it's considerably slower, real slower on the upload. So speed, reliability, if you put the Comcast out there, you're gonna have to put in a VPN connection, which can potentially have more problems like we're having with the EMS department at the moment. So I would say you're more stable, you're faster, feeds right into our existing.
So if I may add to that,
Cost against that.
it is, but it also gives you rights. So you heard future potential build out for public safety, you don't have to go back to ask anybody, you just tie off your line, because you own the line. The speed, it definitely is night and day between the two, but you have rights, so you can add whichever department you were to move down to later, hypothetical, I know for tonight, versus a Comcast, you're going back adding another business account, or can I, even get it to this point, to this site?
I mean, also the cost of tagging into our existing Lumos connection versus signing a long-term contract with Comcast. So your fiber's your big cost. We already got the service.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So shown here is a summary for the proposed utility infrastructure for each site, with the main differences being the public water and sanitary service, along with the fiber optic and telecommunications infrastructure. And you may notice that I did not touch on natural gas earlier during this presentation. The reason being is that since there is a natural gas transmission line in Madison County, however, there are no service taps off the line, so natural gas is not available for either site. So next we performed a transportation analysis of each site to determine if any roadway improvements were necessary for development. We began by looking at the existing roadway network and the location of the proposed entrances to each site. We found that the proposed entrance locations for both the Gate Road site and the Fairgrounds Road site both meet the VDOT requirements for intersection spacing and site distance. Next, we used anticipated trip generation numbers to perform a turn lane analysis to determine if a right turn lane or a left turn lane would be required by the entrance to either site. And the results were that no turn lanes were required for either site, and this led us to the conclusion that no roadway improvements would be required for development of either site. So the geographic location of the proposed rescue squad building will also play a role in the site selection due to the impact it can have on response times to emergency calls within the service area. We analyzed the frequency of emergency calls received by zip code and also the anticipated travel time to potential hotspots such as nursing homes or points of interest such as schools. Next slide, please. So shown here is a frequency map of the calls received, with a larger circle indicating a larger number of calls by zip code, and this data has been compiled over about the past 3.5 years. As you can see, both sites are located within the zip code with the largest frequency of emergency calls. So then we began to look at the anticipated response times from each site to these potential hotspots or points of interest, and shown are nursing homes and schools in the area. It was found that the Fairgrounds Roadside generally has shorter response times to these locations. So one other aspect that we've kind of touched on throughout this presentation is the potential for future expansion. The county asked that we look at the potential to relocate other buildings to these sites, say if they want to move the sheriff's department there or an emergency management office, to kind of facilitate the creation of a public safety campus within the county. And next slide, please. So the Gate Road site is limited due to the existing 60-foot right-of-way running through the property and the existing stream in the southern area of the site. After development, these two constraints do not leave much room on the site. However, adjacent parcels may be purchased by the county to provide more room for development. Shown on this map are the undeveloped parcels surrounding the Gate Road site, along with owner information and the assessed property value from the Madison County GIS website. Unfortunately, the availability of these parcels is unknown, and that could present a problem if a particular landowner is unwilling to sell. The Fairgrounds Roadside does have potential for future expansion upon the 31-acre area of interest. However, this site is also located by the existing stream running along the southern and eastern boundaries. We assumed a 100-foot stream buffer to account for this, and after removing the area that will be developed for the rescue squad building, that leaves approximately 15.5 acres within the site that could be used for future development. So that brings us to our next point of discussion, the cost to develop each of these properties. And at this point, I'll be turning the presentation back over to Patrick.
So looking at these numbers, I just want to point out that these are just order of magnitude numbers. Please don't look at them and say, boy, this is the gospel, because this is not a bid. As you probably know, everything is in flux right now, but they are based on historical bid data. So we tried to plug in all the unit quantities that we could based on what we know about the site development at this time. And keep in mind, this is just the site development. This has nothing to do with the building or any of the other soft costs that will go along with it. But again, in line with the site assessment, that's what this tells you. So I think Zach pointed out one of the larger costs was the extension of the water and sanitary sewer infrastructure to serve the gate or the fairground site. Even if you were to do that, you could go with well and also a private septic system on that, and that brings those two sites a little bit more equal. But still, I did this, and I said at the beginning I wasn't going to offer any opinions or recommendations, but I think I can do that here because they are quantifiable numbers. Is that the fairground site may cost 20 to 30% more to develop as it is now. Now, having said that, understand that we used the same building prototype on that site that was used on the Gate Road property. There may be a more efficient building that fits on that site. I just want to throw that out to you so you don't say, okay, this is definitely going to cost 20 to 30% more depending on how much infrastructure development we decide to do. So again, just please keep that in mind as you, and a lot of times one of the things that's mostly considered, of course, is the cost, and that's a huge part of it. So next slide, please, with that. Does anybody have any other questions, concerns, issues? Mr. Jackson, are you confused?
No, I really want to ask you, which one do you recommend?
Sorry, I can't answer that question, sir.
So it's, oh no, that was well laid out. I have not looked at the detailed study, but I assume among Noah and Jonathan's staff and the board, I'm an accountant by education, so it's going to be some stuff checked off on the debit side and the credit side, and that looks like the only way to go through this, because every time I would get to the next slide, and then when I was reviewing it this afternoon at home, I'd say, okay, it's Gate Road. Oh, okay, it's Fairground. Then I'd go back to Gate Road for something. So I need to put it all down and look at it as a whole.
I think the interesting comment, and just something that's worth mentioning, is what you're saying about using the same building building style and development platform on both sites, and maybe